I don't think they're ready, bro. What we got, bro? We got the... Damn, nigga. We got the baby. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the channel and welcome to the video. I've been wanting to make this video for a little while now, for at least a couple of months to almost a year, discussing these topics that I'm about to discuss of. I feel like God has really put it into my heart to be able to talk about my story and my testimony and my experience with the whole frat life. And I hope that you can watch the whole video through so you can actually understand and just get the gist of the whole experience and dynamic of how a frat life actually is, and just some of the misconceptions and some of the stigmas and things like that. And I just want to kind of reveal my truth and just my experiences during it. You clicked on this video for a reason, so whether you're a Christian in a fraternity or a sorority, or you're thinking about joining a fraternity or sorority, or even if you're not Christian and you're just genuinely curious or interested about the whole experience or process, please just watch the whole video through so you can get the whole sense of what it's really like and the actual truth of it. Like I said, I've been wanting to make this video for a while now, but I feel like I've always gotten caught up because I don't really know how to express myself all that well, at least in a storytelling manner, because sometimes I get caught up in my words and sometimes my ideas are just all over the place. So I feel like God will help me to, guide my words through and through so you guys can get the whole idea of what it's really like to be in a fraternity or sorority. I'm gonna try to explain it to the best of my capabilities and the best way possible so that you can get, a general idea of what it's really like. So I'm gonna try to stay in chronological order and just try to make sense of the whole thing, and so you guys can get a holistic idea of what it's really like. I'm gonna start all the way at the beginning, from the beginning of my life. I feel like I grew up in a Christian household, and my mom is a very strong Christian woman with very, very strong Christian values. And I feel like I was raised up in a church, but I never really followed, Jesus or Christ. I never really followed that path. I went to church and I did serve, and I was considered, the model standard, I guess. But at the same time, I also felt like I was putting up a facade, just because I was, serving in the church, serving, the body of Christ, but at the same time, I was also doing things that I wasn't supposed to be doing. I was serving the world as well. I was going with the world. So I feel like that's always been my biggest struggles. And so that's just kind of like my backstory, so you could get some context. Growing up, I dealt with a lot of traumas, and I've dealt with a lot of things that, kids shouldn't really have to go through. And I felt like that continued on into my adulthood because it was never really dealt with, because I didn't really know how to deal with it. I didn't know who to speak to. I didn't know what to do or how to find a solution to these things that I was having problems with. Fast forward into my my adulthood, or into the college years at least, that's when I decided to start really experimenting, and also just I felt like I was the furthest away from God as possible during that time, just because I was pretty faithful to the church. But a lot of things happened within my church community that made me stray away from it. And also I was entering my freshman year of college. So that's when I just decided to completely stop going to church and just stop, I guess, following God at all, completely. And I felt like that's when everything in my life took a turn for the worst, I would say, because I realized during my college years, I was going through a lot of, mental health issues. I was going through depression, and those were just all manifestations of all the things that I didn't deal with as a, that I was going through as a child that I didn't deal with, growing up. I feel like I'm someone who's very, not easily influenced, but I can be influenced, and I can, just follow the trend. I can, sway to certain things. And I'm someone who's pretty outgoing, I would say. I can be a combination of both. Like, I could be outgoing, I could be introverted. So, but I've always liked being around people. I like, having tons of friends. I like, having to do stuff. So me going into my college years, I went to a commuter college or commuter school, and it was kind of hard to make friends if you weren't like super extroverted or super outgoing, or if you didn't join a club, or if you didn't join a fraternity or sorority or whatever, then you really wouldn't have friends. Because in a commuter school, it's generally like you're just going to school and classes just for the educational part, but you're not really there to socialize. Well, majority of the part is you're not going there to socialize. Like, people have their own responsibilities and other things that they got to handle, and they're really not worried about making friends. So I felt like that was the whole dynamic within my schooling system. So I've always felt kind of like alone in that sense. So I've always wanted to just be around a group of people, just hang out and stuff like that. And during my freshman year, I did get a chance to meet other people within my classes, but I still felt like there was still something missing, because I still felt like I wasn't making those, genuine connections and stuff. Because like I said, again, it's like people just go to campus and then they go back home or go to work and stuff like that. Because people have, some of these people are adults, or some of these kids aren't really interested in making friends, or some of them are introverted. So it's kind of hard to open up. So going into my sophomore year, I was about like 19 years old, or around that age. I had went to there's an event called like Club Day, where all the clubs on campus like gathered in one place. So it was around like an outside space in our campus on the quad. So basically, it's like an outdoor space where all the club members and all the fraternities and sororities are there, and they're pretty much just there to show people what their club is about, and just to get members, obviously. One of the clubs that I did see was, well, the fraternity that I did see, I was, genuinely interested and curious, just because like I seen a bunch of group of people who were really close to each other, or it seemed like they were close to each other, and it seemed like they were having the time of their lives. Like, it seemed like there was a real camaraderie. It seemed like there was a real brotherhood. So I wanted to be a part of that, and I decided to pledge, or to rush, or whatever you're familiar with. And so I was around like 19 years old, and around that time, like, again, I was still pretty like lost in life. I didn't really know much of anything, to be honest. Like, I wasn't really focused with school. I was just going through a lot, and I felt like me making friends is a way to substitute that pain, I guess, or that loneliness, or whatever it may be that I was going through at the time. So I decided to join, and at the time, it felt like it seemed okay, just because like I wasn't close with God, and I felt just really distant from God, and I wasn't really following in his path. So I felt like me going with the world was just like it was fine. Like, there was nothing wrong with it. But going through the whole process, I didn't end up finishing the whole process. Like, I didn't end up, joining the fraternity, because I decided to quit during about like a month in through the whole process, just because like I felt like there was something like that was uneasy with me. Like, there was just something off about it. Like, I couldn't fully, I still can't fully explain it, but I just knew that there was something off. But yeah, and then just to fast forward a little bit to help continue the story, after I had quit, again, I was still just going through the motions of going through college and stuff. So I was around like 19 years old at the time. That's when things started to get worse for me, because then I felt like a failure, because I couldn't, join the fraternity. I also was going through a lot with like my education, because I wasn't doing good in classes. Like, I was pretty much failing out of my classes, to be honest. Like, I remember I was almost close to being put on academic probation. So it's pretty much when you have, like, I guess, a grade that's too low for the expectation that you're supposed to meet. And I'm pretty sure I had like a 1.6 GPA at that point, like either while I was trying to pledge or after that semester. So everything in my life was just going completely wrong. And then with that as well, I was also going through just a lot of like relationship issues with my friends, and just also, you know, the things that was going on with my love life. And it's crazy for me to say that right now, because I was so young. I was like 19 or 20, and I'm talking about my love life. Like, you know, if if something happens, it's like the end of the world. But yeah, so I was going through a lot at that time. So I was going through like just like a huge phase of loneliness, sadness, emptiness, depression, like just the whole shebang, the whole 9 yards. And I felt like I couldn't really get over that fact, just because like I was just so alone. And then fast forward a year later, like while all that was going through, like someone from the fraternity that I had initially tried to join had, I guess we were still connected because I was the like the people that I initially joined with, but they had made the fraternity and I didn't. So we kept in contact and stuff like that. So, you know, we were generally kind of close. But a year had passed, and then I think I saw them again during like when the semester started in the fall. So this was a whole year after. So I'm up to my like junior year at this time now. So I was about like 20 years old ish. So I had reconnected back with them, and then I was like, you know what? Let me just try to do this again. Like, I know I'm someone who's not, you know, a quitter, and that when I generally start something, I want to finish it. So I felt like this was a huge thing for me. So I did want to do it. And again, I was going through a lot at the time too. So I definitely wanted something to fulfill me. And I thought that this would be a way, you know, out. Decided to pledge again, or decided to rush again, whatever you're familiar with. And like I said earlier, it still felt uneasy for me doing the whole thing, but I just had to hide that fact, just because like if I didn't, then I could have been kicked out, because my personal beliefs or my personal faith would have been contradicting to the things that they were doing. And that's why I felt like there was a nudge in me. Like I had just a gut feeling that just things weren't going to, you know, things weren't aligning with my faith. And the whole process and the whole like initiation or whatever it was just, it felt very dark and it felt very evil, but I didn't know it at the time, because like I said, I was just going through the motions and I just wanted to finish. And during that whole time, during the process, so usually like the process for, you know, in order for you to pledge into a fraternity or sorority, it generally takes about a semester, or sometimes it can take up to a whole year, you know, depending on what organization you're in. But mine only took about like, you know, a semester. But at the same time, like I said, I felt really uneasy, but I just wanted to complete it because I felt like I was a failure if I didn't, and that there was just, you know, some history like between me and the fraternity, and it felt like a perfect fit at the time. The fraternity that I used to be in is kind of like similar to a Divine Nine organization, where we had similar ideologies and similar processes in terms of certain things. So we would have stuff like lines, or we would have stuff like probates, and we would have stuff like there's just a lot of similarities between like my organization or my fraternity with a Divine Nine organization, of how we maneuver, of how we did stuff. So if you know about, you know, about Divine Nines, then you would know what my fraternity is basically like. And generally with the whole process, it's like they're trying to strip you of your identity, and they're gonna try to make you into something new, or they're gonna try to make you into a brother. But in order for them to do that, they have to strip you of your identity, and they have to break you down, and they have to do certain things for you to become a member of that fraternity or sorority. One thing that I, you know, like vividly remember was that during the time when I had to pledge, they made us take off all of our garments, like earrings, bracelets, like chains and pendants and stuff like that. And one thing that I like felt uneasy about was taking off my chain, because I had my I have a cross chain. So I felt like that was just like not the first red flag, but one of many red flags that just didn't sit right with me. But I just did it anyways. Like, I had to take it off until I had fully finished the whole process, which was during that whole duration of 3 months. I couldn't even have it on during my off time. I had to have it off, while I was pledging, and I had to have it off like even during the off hours when I wasn't pledging. So I just fully committed to that, just because like I was worried that they would find out that I kept my chain on or whatever, and I just didn't have it on. And I'm someone who always wears my chain and my cross. When my cross and chain was taken off, I felt like there was just something off about it. But again, I just decided to disregard that, just because of the fact that I just wanted to complete that whole process. This whole process was, at the time, it felt pretty, straining. It felt brutal, because even though it was 3 months, they made you do a lot within those 3 months in order for you to complete the whole thing. It felt like it was having like another, like a job on the side, or like you're taking another class. Like, that's how intense the whole process felt, because you're trying to basically like prove to the fraternity that you're going to be a contributing member of that fraternity. And in order for you to do that, you have to go through certain like trials and tribulations and certain hoops that you have to jump through. And the whole thing was just like, it was just very like physically and mentally draining. And like I said, again, I'm someone who didn't want to quit. I'm not a quitter for the most part. And I felt like I had my pride was really big back then, because like I had already quit the first time around, back when I was a sophomore, but now I'm a junior. So I was just like, I can't do this, because I don't really have anything else left going in my life. So I was just like, let me just complete this. So that's why I continued to do it. But even during that whole process, again, when I did it for the second time during my junior year, I wanted to quit so bad after like they did a certain thing that I felt very disrespected at. And, looking back at it now, I should have just quit. But, there's a reason and a purpose for everything. So I didn't quit, and I made it all the way through. Going through that whole process, I felt very accomplished. After I finished, I felt like I had, done a huge accomplishment in my life. I felt like I was a part of something bigger. Like, I was gonna make these amazing connections with all these different people. I was gonna be a brother of this fraternity. I was gonna have so many different friends and connections. And, I thought I was gonna live my best life, because like once you're in a fraternity, you're pretty much like, you pretty much have like different connections with different things. And with me, I felt like the people in my fraternity had so many different connections with other stuff, like events and stuff like that. So I felt like I was genuinely pretty happy, because like I thought I was lit. I thought I was like gonna have the time of my life. I thought I was gonna be partying it up and stuff like that. After I joined, again, like I got that sense of accomplishment. I got that pride of being a brother of the fraternity. I got pretty deep into the whole fraternity life. Like, I managed to become, the president within like one semester. And I really put in the work to be able to like serve the fraternity and just do different, just maintain and handle different responsibilities for them. So everyone in the fraternity really messed with me. They really thought I was like the leader, and they put a lot of different, expectations and responsibilities for me. Just because like I was one of the only few active members on my campus, and the people that I had joined the fraternity with, my line brothers, they had graduated by the time that they had crossed, so they weren't really a part of the chapter anymore. So I was pretty much like running a one-man show. So I pretty much did everything I could to keep the organization alive, and I was making all these different kind of connections with other people in different orgs, just to try to keep that intake of our chapter within our campus. So I felt like I did a lot for the fraternity. I don't have any regrets or any hatred for that, because that's just the type of person that I am. Like, I do love putting in the work. Like, I do love helping other people. So I felt like I was putting my time and all of my efforts within, within that fraternity. And I didn't really think about anything else. Like I was just so head on with the fraternity. I just wanted to do so much. I didn't really focus on school. I didn't focus on my career. I didn't focus on God at all. That was like the last thing on my mind. So I was just pretty much so far away from it. While I'm in this fraternity, I'm having the time of my life. I'm making so many different friends. I'm just going out to different events. I'm going to clubs. I'm doing, X, Y, and Z and stuff like that. But I still felt like there was something missing in my life. Like I felt there was no peace within my life, even though on the outside perspective, it felt like, when you see me, I was just always very happy. I was very content. But on the inside, I just felt like something was missing. So I started to realize that when I was in this fraternity, I started to develop like pretty bad habits, and I was starting to do things that were kind of out of my character and out of my nature. Because, like I said, I did grow up in a Christian household, so I felt like I had a lot of Christian morals and Christian values. But when I was in the fraternity, I started to develop like different, like a different personality. Like I was someone who was very, like during the time when I was in the fraternity, I was someone who was very prideful. I was someone who was filled with anger. I was someone who was like very lustful. Just a lot of different like bad habits that I started to pick up. And one of the things that like may not be a big deal to some people was that like I started to develop like different vices. Like I started to drink, and I'm someone who genuinely like never drinks. I started to drink more, and then I started to smoke hookah. Like I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's like, that kind of like bong kind of shape thing, and then there's like a pipe and you smoke it with coal and stuff. And like some people may not understand how bad hookah actually is, but if you research the effects of hookah, it's just as bad as smoking cigarettes. And I started to develop that vice of just, smoking hookah all the time. Like literally, I felt like I was an addict. Like I was smoking it like 2 to 3 times a week, like 2 times minimum a week. And like each session would go on for like hours on end. So just imagine like an hour, like an hour session of smoking hookah is basically like you're smoking like, I don't know the numerical amount, but it's probably like 10 to 20 packs of cigarettes. So that's pretty much what I was consuming and intaking like for like basically like 2 years, because the whole duration of my fraternity time was about like from 2 years. And within that time I was always smoking hookah. So I felt like that was something that had a stronghold on me, because I felt like very addicted and very attached to it, just because like you don't think much of it. Like you're in a social setting and there's like, you either drink or you smoke hookah, and I'm not someone who generally drinks, so I would just smoke hookah. So again, I feel like I was just developing very like out of my I don't know, I just felt out of my character, and I just felt like there was just something off about me. If you saw the intro, I showed clips and videos of me like smoking a lot of hookah, of me always going out to clubs, to parties, to even strip clubs. And I just felt like there was just something off about the whole thing, just because like it was the way of the world, which I didn't know at the time. But what the world considers to be fun, what the world considers to be something that's like you should be enjoying it. It just felt like there was just something off about it. And it got to the point where I was just so addicted and attached to that lifestyle, because I was generally someone who never liked to be alone, so I was always hanging out with someone. And whenever like I hang out with someone, I'm either smoking hookah, or I'm going to a party, or I'm going somewhere. Like I have to be doing something. So I felt like that was just taking a toll into my life, because like I said, I wasn't focusing on school, I wasn't focusing on my career, I was just chasing different things. I was chasing lust, I was chasing girls, and I felt like that just led me to a whole different like path that God did not want me to go at all. I realized that this lifestyle was very detrimental to me, like now looking back at it. And even at the time, like I said, I felt like something was just off. And there was this one day, I just felt like I just had this lingering feeling that I was gonna like like I was gonna like not make it, like I was gonna die basically. And it didn't happen until like maybe a couple months after, but I had got into a car accident. And during that time of the car accident, I had started working a new job, and it was like from midnight to 7 a.m. So it was like it was a pretty weird schedule. I wasn't used to it. So when I was driving back home, I had gotten into a car accident because I had fell asleep on the wheel. And I didn't know it at the time, but I felt like, like I was going at a speed where like if I wasn't careful enough, or like if I had hit that car in a different way or a different manner, I probably would have not have been here today. Because I got into a pretty bad accident, and it pretty much like totaled the front of my car. But I woke up and there was no scratches on me. I didn't have any injuries. I didn't have any accidents. And I felt like that was like the first sign that I got from God. But I didn't know it at the time, because obviously like you don't think much of it. Like you just got into an accident, like you're just trying to compose yourself. You're just trying to get yourself together. I didn't realize it until like years after. That was like one of the first signs of, God trying to tell me to get out of this lifestyle. Because I've always had this lingering feeling that I was just not gonna make it, or I was just gonna die if I kept living this lifestyle. I just fast forward a little bit. Like I said, I was in the fraternity for about 2 years, so that happened around like year one-ish. But I had just been going so hard for the fraternity and stuff like that, so I had felt kind of like, I had felt a burnt out, and I also felt like there was other people who weren't there for me. And I felt like there was also like there was just so many internal conflicts and problems within the whole fraternity itself. And also there was like, I would say like turmoil within the fraternity, or just within myself and within other people, because I don't want to blame it on anyone. So I just felt some type of ways with different people and stuff like that. So I felt like that was also the first step of me, trying to get out. Because I've always had it in my heart for me to also want to get out of the fraternity, even like without God telling me to do it like verbally, or like in a very direct manner. It was just something in me that just told me to get out, and I didn't know it at the time, but I definitely knew that that was the Holy Spirit guiding me to telling me to get out. Sure enough, fast forward a little bit again, up to like that last couple of months before I exited out of the fraternity. There was just so much going on, so much toxicity, and I just didn't want to be a part of it anymore. And I felt like God put it in that manner just because like that was a way out for me. Because if God had made everything complacent, or if he had made everything flourish within that fraternity, I don't think I ever would have gotten out, just because like I would have had that mentality of being complacent and being just okay and fine where I'm at. But for some reason there was just something not right within the fraternity. Like there was just a lot of conflicts, just internally, externally. So I felt like that was, ultimately my way out, because now I have a real reason as to, why I want to leave. And God had just put that in my heart for me to leave, because I felt like in my spirit, I felt like God told me that like if I didn't leave this lifestyle, I wasn't gonna make it. Like I think if I would have to stay in the fraternity, I don't think I would have been here today. Whether that would have been because of smoking too much, or whether that would have been going out too much, or whatever may have you. Like I just have this gut feeling that I don't think I would have been here today if I would have continued to stayed in that lifestyle. I decided to finally denounce my letters and the fraternity that I was in. I had, again, at the time, I wasn't really close to God, but I was still like itching and crawling my way back to him, like unintentionally, and also like unsubconsciously as well. Because I felt like all those gut feelings that I had it was coming from God. It was coming from, the Holy Spirit that was trying to guide me out of it. I had denounced my letters, and I had, this whole written letter to everyone in the fraternity saying why I wanted to leave, and that I was choosing my faith over them, basically. And I didn't know it at the time. I felt like I was making an excuse, or like I didn't really believe in what I was saying. But for whatever reason, God had just told me to write that because that was the actual truth. I was actually trying to get out of this lifestyle and this fraternity because I want to express my faith freely, and because I want to be able to live for God without having to serve another entity. There's many stories in the Bible, or there's many verses in the Bible where God talks about serving idols or serving, different statues or entities like that. And you may not think of like being in a fraternity or sorority as serving an idol, but you truly are serving something that's not of God or for God. Because when you're in a fraternity, you're pretty much creating this covenant between you and that entity, which is like an evil thing. Because again, none of it is from the Word of God. And I understand if you're like in an organization where you have Christian values, if you're in a D9 where you use like Bible verses in your rituals and stuff like that. But I can assure you and I can promise you that those words are all twisted, and that they're used to be able to manipulate you into continuing to stay within that lifestyle. And again, like I said, there are stories in the Bible where God has, pretty much destroyed people who are serving other idols or serving other gods. And that's why I felt compelled to quit the organization, to denounce my letters, just because like I said, I felt like I wasn't gonna make it if I kept living that lifestyle. And looking back at it now, it's just very transparent to see that like God hates when people serve other idols and other entities. And that's exactly what I was doing. I wasn't serving him. I was serving another spirit, another whatever it is. And if you are in a fraternity and sorority, you know that there are different rituals and different principles that you have, and that when you're maintaining those principles and rituals or whatever, you're saying stuff that's not of God or for God. Because when I was in a fraternity, when I was joining, during that process, I was saying a lot of things that were very contradicting to what I believed in. Because I was literally basically like worshiping another God. I was worshiping another spirit. I was worshiping another entity. And I was just saying a lot of like evil and demonic things. And I was pretty much creating a covenant between me and that fraternity. Like it was like a tie. Like my soul was with them or for them. And looking back at it now, I'm so glad that I'm able to just, that God had just given me different signs, different feelings, and that God had just ultimately taken me out of that whole thing. You have to realize that you cannot serve two masters, because you're going to realize that you're going to be happy with one and you're going to be angry with another. And that's also a verse in the Bible, but I'm just paraphrasing. But you can't serve two masters. God said, choose this day who you're going to serve. You're going to either serve money, you're going to serve your fraternity, you're going to serve your job, you're going to serve your possessions, you're going to serve whatever and whoever it is. But you cannot serve him and something else. You either have to choose one or the other. And that's what I truly realize right now. One important thing that I wanted to mention is that like, if you are struggling with the same thing, if you are trying to get out of this lifestyle, or once you have left this lifestyle, it is important for you to get rid of all those attachments that you have. Because when I quit, like right after I had denounced, I had gotten rid of all of my paraphernalia. So paraphernalia is like garments or clothing or whatever it may be. I got rid of everything because I didn't want to have any of those attachments, connected to me at all. Because again, like I said, those were just all evil spirits that were just connected to you. So again, within the Greek organizations, like, showing your letters is showing your way of your pride or like your love for that fraternity or sorority. But I also felt very conflicted while doing that, because I was someone who was, like I said, I was someone who always wore my chain and my cross. And how can I be repping God and be repping like another entity at the same time? Like it was just very contradicting. So I felt like that was another thing that I felt very, very uneasy about, because I was basically like imagine like you have like two rival sports teams, whether it be in basketball. Like imagine you're wearing like a Lakers shirt and you're wearing a Boston Celtics hat. Like you just look crazy. So I mean, obviously this example isn't I guess isn't as like visible because like it's a cross and like letters and stuff, but it's the same concept. It's like, how can I be representing God with my chain and my cross, but I'm wearing, you know, these Greek letters? It doesn't make sense. Get rid of all of your items, whatever you know, whatever you have, your clothes, your books, whatever it is, just get rid of it. Throw it out, you know, burn it, whatever it is. That's what I did, and no one told me to do that, but I just felt very compelled to, because I felt like God was telling me to get rid of these things. Because if you truly say that you're for God, then you have to get rid of your worldly attachments. And those were the things that I was attached to, so I had to get rid of it. And if you are someone who is in the same position that I was in, you might be met with resistance, or you might be met with oppositions, because you know, there are going to be, especially if you're in, you know, in a Divine Nine organization, there's a lot of history behind it, and it feels like very disrespectful for you to denounce your letters, because like I said, there's a whole lot of pride within Greek organizations, and you denouncing is basically like a slap in the face to them. And if you're in this position right now, I'm just here to tell you that whether you may be facing these oppositions, or whether you may be facing like some form of like rebuttal from people telling you to just stay, like it's not that big of a deal. Like it's, you know, just listen to your heart, listen to what God is telling you, and just please remove yourself from this, and tell God to help you to remove yourself from the situation, because it is about who God says you are. It's not about who your family says you are. It's not about who your friends say you are. It's not about what that stranger says you are. You know, it's about who God says you are. And you may have a lot of attachment to it. Like you may be, you know, you may be a part of a legacy. You may be someone who has family in these organizations, so you feel like it's your obligation to be a part of these organizations. But I'm telling you today that you can be the one to break off these chains. You can be the first one in your family to break these patterns of just attachment, break these patterns of toxicity, and just break this chain that's connecting you away from God. I would also like to say that you're never in too deep for God to be able to save you, that His grace and His mercy and His salvation is always going to be there for you, regardless of how deep or how many mistakes you think you've made in your life, how many sins you've committed. If you just cry out to Him, if you surrender your life to Him, He will make a way. He will open up these doors. He will find a way to get you out. Because there's this like story in the Bible that like people may be familiar with, that like, you know, God had left the 99 to save the one. In the context of the Bible, it's talking about sheeps, but in context of reality, it's talking about like that one person that needs to be saved, that one person who's lost in this life. And I'm getting emotional talking about it, because like I felt like I was very lost in life at the time, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I was that lost sheep that God had tended to, that God had, you know, seeked out for me to be back with Him. And I know a lot of people are maybe going through these same things, but just realize that that you're never too far away from Him, and that He will always be there for you, and He will never forsake you, regardless of how bad you think of a person you are, no matter how many sins you've committed, no matter you know, just no matter how deep you are in that pit that you dug yourself. God will always stretch out His hands, and He will take you out of it. Another story that also helps me, you know, with what I just said, is also when Jesus was on the cross, there were two thieves that was up there with Him, and one of the thieves didn't repent and didn't believe in the glory and, you know, just the mercy of God. But there was another thief on the cross who had seen what Jesus had gone through, and he had seen just the amount of pain, the amount of suffering that he went through in order for him to save us all. And he decided to finally repent and to ask for forgiveness from Jesus and from the Lord. And Jesus on the cross said to him that day that he will be on the kingdom with him. And that thief was literally on like the last probably couple of minutes or couple of hours into his life, and he didn't have a chance to fully repent. Well, he had a chance to fully repent, but he didn't have a chance to repay all of his mistakes. He didn't have a chance to ask for forgiveness from all the people that he's hurt or the people that he stole from or whatever it may be. And that's kind of like a crazy story to think about, because he was literally on his last few breaths of life, but he decided to give his life to Jesus, and he was ultimately saved. You're never too far gone. You're never too far off. You're never too far deep in order for God to reach you, in order for Jesus to save you, in order for him to stretch out his hands, and in order for him to find and save you. I'm not someone who's here to judge your decisions or your actions. I couldn't care less if you've made mistakes, if you've done just horrible things in your life. Because I felt like that. I felt like I've done some pretty horrible things in my life. Like I felt I've done some wrongs that can't be taken back. But Jesus says that there's always redemption, that there's always salvation, that his blood on the cross was the ultimate sacrifice and the ultimate price for all of us. And that no matter what we do in this world, that nothing can ever be enough than that blood on that cross that was shed for all of us. And I know that the school semester is coming up, or the school semester has already started, so some of you may be thinking about joining a fraternity or sorority. But I'm here to tell you, please be mindful of your actions. And you may have like good intentions of joining, but just please find it in your heart and pray about it, and just ask God, is this really right? Is this something that's actually helping me to serve you, or is this something that my flesh wants? You may be enticed, or you may be persuaded to join it, or you may be someone who's still in the fraternity or sorority. I just want to say that it's never too late to leave this lifestyle, and that you may be holding on to these connections, or you think that you're going to be making connections, or you're going to be making like friends for life. You're going to be making a brotherhood or a sisterhood, but your ultimate family, your ultimate connection should only be with God. God is going to open up these doors for you, without these organizations. Like, you think you're going to join just because you think you're going to have like these connections, you think you're going to find a job with, like with the people who help you along the way, or whatever it may be. But I'm telling you here today that after I had quit my fraternity, I felt like God had just been blessing me with just so many different things in my life. Like, my career had started to flourish, my education had started to flourish, my joy, my sense of happiness, just my fulfillment in this world had just started to all make sense, and everything was just being outpoured to me and being shown to me, just because like I decided to choose God above it all. Like, I decided to denounce my flesh and just choose God. With doing so, God will bless you with all the things that you dream and you desire of, and that you don't need to have these connections. You don't need to be a part of a fraternity. You don't need to be a part of that sorority. I just want to leave off, with just a couple of verses, just to give you some clarity and some words of affirmation that God will be there to make your path straight, regardless of how far off you are away from him, how distant away you are from him. I was in the same position that you may be in. I was the furthest away from God, and I felt like I was choosing the world. I was choosing this life of sin over God. But ultimately, there is a reason and there's a purpose for everything, that there's a season and there's a time for everything. So you may have to go through certain things, but there's ultimately a purpose for it all, and that's for his glory. And there's even a verse in the Bible that says that you may not understand what I'm doing now. So, whether you feel like you're at the worst point of your life, I'm here to tell you that it's not going to last, and that Jesus will pull you out of that pit. He will give you all the blessings and all the things that you dream and you desire of when you choose him. And it says in Proverbs 3 verse 5 through 6, it says, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. So if you truly decide to commit to God, if you truly decide to choose God and say that, God, Jesus, you are my Savior, you are my healer, you are my Lord. Your blood that was shed on the cross for me has paid the price for my sins, and that I decide to choose you to this day, God. I no longer serve any other idols. I no longer serve any other entities, and that I'm fully committed to you. And once you decide to make, that commitment to God, He will show you a way. He will make your path straight, and your life will start to flourish, I promise you. One last verse that I want to say is in Proverbs 16 verse 9. We can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps. And like I said again, it doesn't matter how far off you are from God, how distant away you are from God, how many times you fell off, how many times you committed that sin, how many times you backslid, how many times you betrayed God, how many times you betrayed yourself, your integrity, and all these different things. God will see to it that He will find you, and that He will redeem you, and that He will use you, and that you're never ever too far gone. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, I really appreciate all of you for watching. I feel like, there was just something in me to discuss this topic, and to just to talk about my life and to talk about my testimony, especially with something that I've personally dealt with, and I know a lot of people may be struggling with, or someone may be interested in. And I hope that this video provides value, and that I hope that Jesus can talk to you guys, and that He can directly send you a verbal message or whatever it may be. Hopefully it can be straight to your ears, but if it's not, I hope that this is just a sign. I did want to point out, like I mentioned before, I didn't want to make this video in the first place because I felt like I was gonna feel embarrassed to talk about it. I was gonna feel ashamed. I was gonna feel like there was gonna be people who were gonna make fun of me for talking about this, or there was gonna be people who's gonna be hating, but I don't care. I realized that God had put it in my heart for me to talk about this, and that I truly have to talk about it in order for me to be fully convicted from it. And I also got this confirmation while talking to somebody else about this topic. And it was very subtle, because I had only mentioned the fact that I was in a fraternity, and the fact that I was just, just so addicted on my past behaviors, like smoking hookah and stuff. And for whatever reason, we got into a conversation for a couple of minutes, and I told him that I make YouTube videos and stuff. And he pretty much just confirmed to me that I have to make this video, that I have to be able to talk about this message, because there may be other people who are struggling with the same things. So if you're watching this video, I appreciate you, Steven, because I feel like you were a sign and confirmation from God. And that's just insane to me, that God will put these people or these events or these things into your life in order, for Him to give you that confirmation or whatever it may be that He wants to tell you. Again, I appreciate all y'all for watching. I appreciate the love and the support that you guys have been giving me. Even though my channel is not that big, I want to be able to make an impact by spreading the word of the gospel. I want to be able to make an impact by just talking about my life and talking about my experiences, and hopefully that you can resonate with that as well. So I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and just comment down below if you're also going through something similar, or if you're going through just some hardship in life, and let's just talk about it. Yeah, so thank y'all. I appreciate y'all again, and I'm out of here. Peace.